Hello, my name is Tim Johnson. I'm the senior pastor at Rock Valley Chapel. And today is going to be the first installment of devotionals that we're going to offer every week. Either I will offer it, or one of the staff, or one of our elders. And the design behind the devotionals is to give you something to chew on in the middle of the week, just to kind of keep you going, a little bit of Bible food for us all to kind of chew on and get us through the week. And so today I would like to look at the book of Ruth, because Ruth is a book that we are reading in our Bible reading plan at Rock Valley Chapel. And I want to reflect a little bit on Ruth chapter 3, starting at verse 10. But before we get right to that verse, let me give you a little context on the book of Ruth. The book of Ruth starts out with a woman named Naomi. She's a Jewish woman. She and her husband are forced to go to the region of Moab because of a famine in Israel. And we can see on the map here where Moab is very close to the region of Judea, just on the other side of the Dead Sea. And so they are in Moab because of the famine, as I mentioned. And then a little bit into the story, they're going to go back to this area, just south actually of Jerusalem. And so the book opens with Naomi and her husband in Moab. Her husband dies, and her two sons also die in Moab. But both of her sons had wives who were from Moab. The two daughters are not quite sure what to do, just like Naomi is not quite sure what to do after all of their husbands die. One of the daughters decides to stay in Moab, her home area. But the other daughter, Ruth, insists on going with Naomi back to Israel to spend the rest of her life with her. They go back to Israel, and they then have to fend for themselves because neither of them have their husbands. And one of the things they do is send Ruth to various fields to glean some of the harvest produce. And so gleaning is a biblical idea whereby those who are harvesting their fields leave some of the extras behind for the people who are poor or the aliens who are passing through the land to pick up and have some kind of provisions for themselves. So Ruth goes to some fields and does some gleaning, and that's the way she supports herself and Naomi for a while. Well, at some point, Naomi realizes that Ruth should be gleaning, or has been gleaning actually, in one of the fields of a man named Boaz. Boaz is related to Naomi's deceased husband, and Naomi encourages Ruth to go and glean in Boaz's fields, and then to go ahead and make overtures to Boaz with the idea of perhaps being wedded to him. And so that's where we pick up the story here in the book of Ruth, chapter 3, starting at verse 10, where Ruth has already gone to Boaz to try to make some kind of an appeal that perhaps she might be an eligible woman for him to marry. In verse 10, Boaz says to Ruth, "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask, for all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer. Yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then, as the Lord lives, I will redeem you." There's a Hebrew word, goel, that means redeemer, and it refers to somebody who is related to somebody who dies. So in this case, Naomi's husband had died in Moab, and Boaz is a relative of her deceased husband, who is therefore eligible to redeem everything that Naomi's husband lost. So Boaz would be eligible to redeem Naomi, eligible to redeem the land that her husband had owned or had been tied to. And for that matter, since Ruth was with Naomi, Boaz was therefore eligible to redeem Ruth. And we saw in the verses that we just read that Boaz thought very highly of Ruth and was actually surprised that she had come to him to seek his hand in marriage, because apparently he was a little bit older. Therefore, he is very interested in marrying her, but he realizes that there's another Redeemer, another another Goel who's actually closer to Naomi's husband than he himself is. And so Boaz, even though he's interested in Ruth, does the right thing. He acknowledges that there's somebody else who has the first right to redeem the land, and for that matter, Ruth. You and I often are confronted with situations with whether or not we should do the right thing. Sometimes we get a little too much change at the grocery store. Are we going to give the other back? Sometimes we're pulled over by a police officer and we might want to fib what's going on in order to avoid a ticket. Sometimes when we come home from school, we may not have finished our homework, but we want to go out and play. Are we going to do the right thing and tell the truth and give God room to bless us and give God room to do the right things in our lives? Boaz is a wonderful model for how we should be doing the right thing. And I hope that this convicts us all to do the right thing in our everyday lives. And I hope it inspires you to consider how your relationship with the Lord is growing by doing the right thing. Thank you, and God bless you.